All right, well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Uh, for those who I've not met yet, my name is Coach Tim Campsell, and I'd like to welcome you to our 6 steps to building a business that will survive and thrive. I am going to be recording this so that I can send it out to folks who have registered and may not have been able to join us this evening. There will also be time at the end for some Q&A, so if you have questions, please go ahead and type them in the chat box, and I'll address them as we go through it. And then specifically at the end, we'll have some open time as well. The other thing to mention is with the current economic situation and the changes with relationship to social distancing, I usually do these things live. And so I've pivoted like many people have and am offering this virtually. And so there's going to be some things throughout that we usually do in person that I'm going to attempt to do live here. And I'll just ask you guys to participate as if we were in person, knowing obviously that we're not, and some of those things might be a little clunky, but to get the best learning experience, it would ask you to participate as if we were together. Okay. So what I'm going to ask is, just, again, pretend that we're face to face. So how many of you have made mistakes in your life? Go ahead and raise your hand. I know you don't have your cameras on, but that's okay. Just assume that you, yeah, they're wonderful. Great. Thank you. So how many would say that they're experts at making mistakes? Yeah, me too. In fact, I raise both of my hands and sometimes even my leg. But the reality is that we learn to walk by falling down, right? We learn to walk by making mistakes. But the difference is that we were encouraged and supported and helped along the way, and it didn't feel like it was a mistake at all. So what happens when we become adults, right? We're then taught that we can't fail, right? So we stop putting ourselves out there. So I guarantee you're going to learn specific steps, ideas, and strategies to help you stop making mistakes in your business and be a better leader, a better communicator, and a better influencer. But here's the catch. You must choose to put yourself out there and take action. If you just sit and listen, you're only going to absorb about 7% of what I'm sharing with you this evening. If you take notes, that actually increases up to 50%. And if you participate, i.e. write in different colors so that it pulls in both your left and your right hand side of your brain. If you raise your hand when I ask you to do so, if you respond to questions, that retention rate actually goes up to 98%. So the only failure then is the failure to what? Call it out for me. Yeah, the failure to participate. So if you give 100% this evening, then you'll get 100% out of the exercise. So at the end of the seminar, I'm going to ask you to take action, and I'm going to present you with an offer that you're going to want to take advantage of. So again, by a show of hands, can I get a commitment that you're going to participate and take action this evening?
Yep.
All right, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so being in business is a tough gig sometimes. It's one of the loneliest jobs there is. Thank you, Julie, for the thumbs up. So I want to first thank you for registering for this seminar to find out what business coaching is and how to grow your business. There are 6 steps to growing your business that we teach at Action Coach. And we find that by doing it this way, a systematic methodology, which, by the way, we've been doing for over 26 years, has helped tens of thousands of companies. A little bit about my background. I was born and raised in Canada and moved to the US in 2005. So you're going to hear some words that I pronounce that may not sound right to you, but I assure you that in my head, they sound perfectly correct. I started working at the age of 15, running a local gas station where I opened the store on the weekends at 6 in the morning while the owner slept in. Then for the past 28 years, I've had a very successful career managing businesses and coaching teams within corporations. I've had many different experiences on businesses I think you probably know very well, like Kentucky Fried Chicken, Raid, Off, Ziploc, Saran Wrap, Edge and Skintimate Shave Gel, Scrubbing Bubbles, Pledge, Fantastic, Sargento Cheese, Red Gold Tomatoes. And these businesses ranged from 1.5 million in revenue to over 500 million. In that same time, I've coached, trained, taught, and mentored well over 200 people. It's very fulfilling to see someone that I've invested into grow and develop into someone that can do my job even better than I can. People I've coached have gone on to become vice presidents, presidents, and even a CEO of corporations both here and in Canada. This is my family. On the far left there is my oldest stepson, Tony. He's 24 and lives in Milwaukee. Next to him is Enrique. He's 19 and also lives in Milwaukee. In the middle there is my beautiful wife, Patrita. And in the front is our little guy who keeps correcting us and tells us that he's no longer little because he just recently turned 13. I've chased my career over the past 10 years, which has required me to move frequently and had a negative impact on my family. My wife's in a 100% commission sales career. So when we move, it takes her 3 to 4 years to rebuild her business. And I've been moving us every 3 to 4 years, which has obviously hurt her career. Despite this, she's always been incredibly supportive of my career at the expense of her own. This, coupled with the fact that corporations have been focusing less on employees and more on profit, led me to realize that this life was no longer a fit for me and my family. Additionally, I grew up teased for not having brand names because my parents couldn't afford them. Then my dad got hurt at work and was unable to work, so things were tough. As a result, I've always wanted to help others. I was a peer counselor in high school and a lay counselor at church. I was a big brother for a number of years. And at work, my number one priority was to coach, train, and mentor my team. My passion is to help others to become all that they can be. So with my business experience and my desire to help others, it led me into business coaching, as I know there's many business owners who can benefit from my help. I chose Action Coach because I believe it's the best option to help me realize my vision that no business owner in the greater Indy area would be without a coach. They would not feel isolated, frustrated, or hopeless. Instead, they would invest in allowing me to take them on an incredible journey of building their business so that they can use the profits from the business to enable them to realize their personal life goals. A little bit about Action Coach. It is privately owned and founded by Brad Sugars, who is an entrepreneur and an author. The vision of Action Coach is world abundance through business re-education. What this means is that there are so many businesses that aren't run well or aren't run according to best practices, that for those who take the time to learn how to run a business well, the sky's really the limit. Again, because of the fact that compared to their competitors, they're going to be running their business significantly better than those around them. And therefore, the abundance mentality means if you learn how to run a great business, the sky's the limit. We coach over 15,000 businesses each week around the world. We are the number one business coaching firm in the world, and here's a number of accolades that we've acquired over the years. We've got 1,000 offices in 80 countries around the world, and here's an illustration of those different locations that we have offices. And then my job as a business coach is to help business owners make a lot of money. It's about helping you as business owners improve your business so that you can work less and make more, which ultimately sounds too good to be true. And the reality is that it would be too good to be true if it wasn't for the fact that we've done it with tens of thousands of businesses around the world. The system's not based on theory only. It's based on practical experience with real businesses achieving real results. So I'm going to reward you for your time this evening by teaching you ways to increase sales and profits, free up your time, and create an amazing team. So before we get into the meat of the program, I'd like each of you to share what your number one learning goal is for this webinar. So just go ahead and type it in the chat box there. Or if you feel comfortable just shouting it out, that works as well. What do you want to get out of this evening's webinar?
I'm not too sure, Tim, if it's something specific. It's probably what I don't know. You know, I'm going down the path of trying to develop myself as an operational consultant and always looking to help streamline my clients, if that's through automation or just being smarter as far as working on, you know, instead of working in their business, working on their business. And
Great. Fantastic. Thanks, Julie. All right. Okay, and then new ways of getting business and new ideas. Great. So the reason that I asked you to do that is because what you just did by writing your goals out or expressing your goals is you triggered your reticular activating system. So how many of you have had an experience of buying a new car, and then as you're driving around the week after buying the car, you seem to notice that everyone on the road has the same car? Show of hand. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually your reticular activating system, or your RAS for short. It's not really that everybody bought the same car as you the same time you did. It's that your RAS, or the part of your brainstem that controls your level of consciousness, just made it be something that was more relevant to you and made you more aware of it. It's an incredibly powerful part of our subconscious that spends all day working in the background to achieve the things that we tell it are important. So the time that you spent investigating buying a car and going on test drives and looking at brochures and, you know, researching online, you were telling your reticular activating system that a new car or a new used car is something that's important to you. Then when you finally made the decision on which car to buy, you told your subconscious that that's the one that was most important. So that's why you start to notice that everybody's driving it, because you told your subconscious to pay attention to this thing that's now important to you. So when we set goals, we give our subconscious specific direction on what to work on for us. Have you ever had an experience where you couldn't solve a problem all day, but then after a good night's sleep, the answer just seems to come to you in the morning? Show of hands.
all the time.
Yeah. So same thing, that's your reticular activating system working for you while you're sleeping. So goals are critical in all that we do. To be successful as a business owner, you must have yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily goals so that your RAS can be working on your behalf. So it's really just, you know, the compass for our brain, and our goals are what sets the compass, or the direction of the compass. So have you guys heard the saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So most people say they'll try, but the reality is you can't try. And the reason that you can't try is because trying's not an action. You either do something or you don't do something. You just simply can't try to do something. So we call this idea of doing or not doing something the point of power. And you're either above the point or below the point. People below the point do three things. I'm going to have you call them out for me one at a time. So what do people do below the point of power? Call the first one out for me.
Blame.
Yeah, they blame. And who do they blame? Anyone they possibly can. The government, their mother-in-law, their staff, their competition. Right now, a lot of folks are blaming the economy, right? And blaming the government for the lock-ins, right? And there's a lot of folks saying, well, there's nothing I can do because, right, it's the government's fault, or it's the virus's fault. So do a favor for me. Point at me as if you're blaming me for something that happened to you. And then take notice of How many fingers are pointing back at yourself?
Mm.
3. Isn't that interesting? So I wonder, in every situation that we tend to blame others, who can actually have more control over that situation?
Mm.
The next thing that people do below the point is what? Call that next one out for me.
Excuses.
Yeah, they make excuses, right? So how many know kids that are experts at giving excuses? So again, I wonder where they learned that from.
Parents.
Yeah. And then the last thing that people do below the point of power is they deny, or they live in a state of denial. These people are viruses. They're toxic to your organization, right? They think that they're the rock stars and they can't do anything wrong, but they're going to destroy your organization. So you want to make sure when you identify those that you remove them from your company as soon as possible. So notice that blame, excuses, and denial can be summed up as BED, B-E-D. Right? These people are the ones who stay trapped in the proverbial bed of life. Now, in contrast, above the point of power, notice that this can be summed up as OR. So these people actually take their OR of life, right, and they chart their own course by taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility for the things that are happening in their life. So we can either choose to live below the point of power and be powerless, or above the point of power and be powerful. It's a daily choice. So can I get agreement from you that you're going to play above the point of power, at least for this seminar?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. So the thing about this is, just because we understand below and above the point, and we just said that we're going to choose to live above the point, doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect. So I remember one day I was at work and was in a meeting with a couple of the owners and the leadership team, and one of the VPs said something that really frustrated me, and I excused myself from the meeting, went to my office, packed up my stuff, went out to the car and started driving home. And then as I was driving home, I started to think about what I was going to tell my wife when I got home, and decided that that's probably not going to work out so well. So I turned around and went back to the office, and with my tail between my legs, excused myself for stepping out of the meeting, and sat back down and went through the rest of the meeting. And fortunately, I was allowed to stay at the company. So my point with sharing that is, we're not going to be perfect, but the idea is, when we find ourselves below the point of power, what we need to do is recognize that and then decide, what is the right next thing to do to pull ourselves back up above the point. Does that make sense? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then a little bit about learning. Does anyone know teenage kids who are experts at saying, I know? Right? We remind them of something that they always forget to do, and the first thing they say is, I know. And then we're like, no, you don't, or you would have done it. So anyway, they're much more verbal and vocal about it. When we become older, we tend to do I know a little bit more politely. Right? In a meeting, we may cross our arms, or we may say to ourselves, I know, or we may subtly roll our eyes. Right? You guys may even be thinking to yourself so far, it's like, Tim, I know all this stuff, right? When are we going to get to the good part? But here's the interesting thing about I know. It kills the possibility that we might be able to learn something from the interaction. Think back to our reticular activating system. If we say I know, we tell our subconscious that there's no value in this conversation, and go off and think about all the other problems that I told you about this morning. And so we don't have the opportunity to learn anything from that interaction. So instead of saying I know, suggest that we replace it with something like, isn't that interesting? Or, tell me more. A word that we keep the possibility of learning open, and realize that, hey, even though I may know a lot about this subject or this topic, there's probably some nuances and some details that I don't know. And if I keep an open mind, I'm probably going to walk away with a few nuggets of information that is going to make me a better business leader and a better person. So show of hands, can I get your agreement that you're going to treat today as a totally new experience and not say I know? All right, fantastic. So always keep an open mind to new possibilities. And then finally, to get the most out of learning, we must be willing to have some, call this out for me, have some what?
Fun.
Yeah, we need to have fun because business is hard, right? It's important to build build fun in throughout the week, throughout the daily grind of work. We want to make sure that we're taking time to pause and celebrate. Even especially now with everything that's going on in the economy and the impact that that's having on our businesses, we want to make sure that we're having a little bit of celebration, right? Find the small wins in the day that we can just say, hey, you know, that's worth celebrating. Let's have a little bit of fun. And then build in routines or rituals with yourself and your team where you are pausing and making sure to celebrate. The biggest mistake that businesses do is they wait till the end of the year to celebrate the year, right? And then what happens if you don't actually hit the goal that you were striving towards? Then you know, the worst case is you don't actually have any fun or any celebrations for an entire year, which can be incredibly overwhelming, especially for your staff who don't, you know, they're not as vested as you may be as the business owner. So don't just wait for the big wins. Find little wins throughout the week and find rituals or routines that you can set up as a weekly thing. So for example, we have pizza and movie night every Friday. And so that's something that as a family that we look forward to as a way to transition from the work week into the weekend and just have a little bit of a mini celebration. It's a low cost way to just celebrate the end of the week. So let's think about your business. There's really two types of businesses. The first is where the business is driving the business owner, with them having their hand in all the day-to-day activities. All decisions need to be made by them. No one can do the job as well as them, and they end up working 60, 70, 80 or more hours a week. The other type of business is where the business owner is driving the business. They have a team that takes care of the day-to-day, and things run very smoothly. And the owner is able to duck out early to see their kids in a school activity or have a 4-day weekend or even take 2 weeks off for vacation without a worry. So how many of you know business owners who have given up running their business to go back to a job because they just got burnt out? Okay, well, the unfortunate reality is that most business owners have actually only really bought themselves a job. And in the job, they're working more hours and making less money than they did when they worked for someone else. And over time, this leads to burnout. And there are too many businesses that go out of business because of this. In fact, 80% of businesses that started in any given year are out of business within 5 years of time. And the number one reason for that is because of burnout. So our goal at Action Coach is to move beyond creating ourselves a job or buying ourselves a job to becoming a true entrepreneur. And we do that by climbing the entrepreneurial ladder. Right? So we all started at some point in our careers as an employee for someone else. When we first start our business, we become self-employed, right? Or a solopreneur. And that's us buying ourselves a job. The goal over time is to work up this ladder here, become a manager by hiring people to take some of the responsibilities off of our plate, to become a business owner, which I'll define here in a slide or two, to ultimately, move up to an investor where we may have multiple businesses, to an entrepreneur where we've got multiple streams of passive income. We don't have to go to work, but we're still getting paid from the businesses. This idea of moving from self-employed to manager comes back to this, what I said earlier about business re-education. So most folks who have gotten into business for themselves have done so because they're an expert at their art or their craft or their trade. And they they went through an experience where they said, you know what? The boss is making all the money and I'm the one doing all the work. That doesn't make any sense. Why don't I just go out on my own and do it instead? And then there becomes this reality of, oh, that's why the owner was the owner, because there's all these other hats that are required in running a business called business owner hats that I wasn't aware of. And now I'm trying to juggle all these hats. I'm completely overwhelmed. I've got too much on my plate, right? And this goes back to I'm working way more than I did when I worked for someone else. And on an hourly basis, I'm making less than I did for someone else. But I look around at all my business owner peers, and everybody seems to be doing the same thing. So I guess business ownership is not all it was cut out to be. And it just means I have to work really hard if I want to make ends meet. And if I want to, take the business, build the business, it just means I have to work harder. So we have this formula for change that states it's D times V plus F has to be greater than R. And what those letters stand for is our dissatisfaction with our current situation times a vision of what a better tomorrow could be, plus the first steps of getting there has to be greater than our resistance to change. So we're all creatures of habit. We like our comfort zone. We prefer not to have to change. So there was already a big enough change to go from an employee to being self-employed that many of us just get stuck there because we assume that that's as good as it's going to get. And so I congratulate you guys all for joining the seminar, because that is the first step, right? The first step in terms of what might a better tomorrow look like, what might climbing up the entrepreneurial ladder look like, and what are these 6 steps to building a better business all about, and how might I be able to implement them in my business? So,
Hey, Tim,
yeah.
What are the words again that stands for the letters?
Yep. So dissatisfaction. So your dissatisfaction with where you're at today, times a vision of what a better tomorrow could look like.
Okay.
And then F is first steps. So understanding what the first steps are to being able to change has to be greater than your resistance to change.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Action Coach, we define a business very differently than most. To us, it's not about buying ourselves a job. It's about becoming a business owner of a successful business. And we define a successful business as a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you, the business owner. And there's 6 steps to building that better business. And this is our methodology. And I'm going to walk you through each of these at a high level, and then I'll go into each of them in more detail. So step 1, call it out for me. What is that?
Mastery.
Yeah, mastery. So mastery is all about mastering how to run a business. So most folks, as I mentioned earlier, get into business and they're not a master at running a business, right? They're a master at something else. They're a master at their art or their craft or their trade, right? Maybe it's a master of carpentry or baking or engineering, or a master of being an accountant or a lawyer or whatever. So instead of having that technical master or technical expertise, we instead need to become a master at running a business. And that's all about eliminating the day-to-day chaos. Step 2, call it out for me.
Niche.
Yeah, niche or niche, however you want to pronounce it. How do you know if you don't have a niche? It's because you are competing on price. The moment that you compete on price, you don't have a niche. So this is all about marketing to bring a predictable cash flow to your business. And then step 3, call that one out for me.
Leverage.
Yeah, leverage. The key to leverage in business is systems. So it'll be up to everyone to systematize the company. And this will ultimately buy us back our time. Then we build a team, then we hit synergy, and then we get ultimate results. And this is the 6 steps that we need to get massive results and grow. But again, here is my challenge with that. Do you think that the average business is missing some of these steps?
What was the question again?
I don't think it's problematic that 10 years ago, I had, at that time, I had been a business owner for 5 years, and the business, so it was more work than what I could do. And so I did bring on some other employees, and I did that for several years, and I got sick of it. And at that stage of the game, I didn't have a background of hiring and managing. So I wasn't making good hires and I wasn't managing well. So I stopped it and I went back to a lifestyle business. So kind of going back to that ladder, I went down from rung 3 to rung 2. Yep. But I stayed there for about the next 7 years, but I was fine. Yeah. And my husband came and worked for me. So I don't consider managing him. But it doesn't fit into the action coach model as far as truly being a business. You're buying a job. But because I do help entrepreneurs, I don't want to say it's problematic, because some of these, some of my clients are making $250,000 and yep. they have a nice life.
Yep. How I would build on that is, you're absolutely right. Climbing up the entrepreneurial ladder isn't for everyone. And I hear the story you just shared a lot, which is, hey, I tried doing that and it didn't work out so well. And now I intentionally stepped back down to just being a solopreneur because I didn't want to have to deal with all of that other stuff. And I'm not here to say that's wrong, right? It's a choice. What I usually ask people though is, hey, if God, so back to the story I shared at the beginning of what happened to my dad. So if God forbid something was to happen to you, mm-hmm. right, or to me right now, because I'm a solopreneur right now as well, what would that do to our lifestyle and the lifestyle of our family? In most cases, right, the answer is, well, there wouldn't be a business because I'm the only reason that the business works. And so that's what
I'm at that place because we're reinventing our services and we are rebranding. And I'm working with the SCORE mentor, but that's part of the reason of coming here today, as far as thinking of another big picture. Mm-hmm. And, there's multiple reasons to be able to want to not to have to be at my desk 45 to 50 hours a week, but the end one, which is actually selling the business and making a profit, is actually becoming more enticing.
Yeah. So think back to the 6 steps that I just walked through here that's up on the screen. The sellability of a business, and I'll walk through this a little bit more in the coming slides, but the sellability of a business that runs without you versus a business that only works because you're in the day-to-day is quite significant, right? An investor will buy a business if you don't have to come with the sale. They'll pay a lot more for that than buying a business that you're the only reason it works, and then they have to go through some transition phase. So we're going to talk through all of that in the next few slides, because that's the essence of, how do we overcome the challenges of actually doing that when we may have tried it in the past and it didn't work out, and it's frustrating and overwhelming, and right, people don't do what they're supposed to, and right, I can't trust people, and right, it's easier if I just do it myself. Right, we're going to talk through all of that.
Yeah, and I've got that figured out now.
Good, wonderful. Yeah. Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit more. So mastery is the first one, as I said, and then back to that definition that I shared of the commercial profitable enterprise that can work without you. At the mastery level, this is all about creating that commercial enterprise. Right? And there's 4 areas here within mastery. The first is destination mastery. So destination is about having a clear understanding of what your business looks like when it's done. Right? So Stephen Covey's begin with the end in mind. Right? What do I want this company to be when it's finished? What's my revenue target? What's my profit target? How many employees am I going to have? And then what's the timeline for that, right? Is that 10 years out or 5 years out, whatever that is. And the reason that we do that is you have to have a goal in order to then step backwards and make sure that you've got strategies and action plans to in place to deliver against that goal. So, for example, I have one client who their goal is to be $1 million business in 5 years from now. Right? And so then we've been working on, okay, what does that look like in 3 years from now, in 1 year from now, quarterly, monthly, and then let's start tracking and making sure that we understand if we're on target or not. The second area is money mastery. So this is all about ensuring that you've got a solid understanding of the financials of your business. So things like your monthly profit and loss statements, not necessarily that you have to know how to fill them out, but that they are being completed monthly and that you know how to read them and be able to make good business decisions based on it. Having a monthly balance sheet completed for your business, and again, knowing how to read it and make decisions based on it. Having a weekly cash flow projection that goes out, depending on what your business cycle is, that goes out 4 to 8 weeks. And during this crisis, we're even recommending going beyond that so that you know what's the cash coming in week by week, projected out, what's the cash going out week by week, and then being able to look, hey, look, in week 5, I've got a deficit that I'm going to need to be proactive and address. Right? I have this client who, when we first started working together, they said, Tim, I just give all my information to my accountant at the end of the year, and then I pray that he tells me I'm profitable. And, I use that one because it's funny, but the part of it that's not funny is that's the majority of the folks that I interact with is that's the level of their money mastery. And that's okay. We have to start somewhere. So, now putting in those processes of let's make sure that we're getting those financials updated and understanding the state of the business. The third area is time mastery. This is about knowing where you're investing your time on a weekly basis, right? Making sure that you understand how much of your time is working in the business versus working on the business. And one of the things that I have clients do is a time study. And it's quite surprising when they reflect on it themselves. Like, oh, I didn't realize how much time I was quote unquote wasting in this area or another. Or I'll start questioning them on things and say, hey, what's this activity? And, oh, that's whatever it is. Okay. Oh, how much would it cost to outsource that or to pay someone to do that, hire someone to do that for you? And I'm making these numbers up. Oh, that's a $15 an hour job. Great. What's your bill rate? Oh, it's $100 an hour. Oh, so how many hours a week are you doing that? 5. Great. So you're losing, right, a significant amount of money every week because of the fact that you're not willing to let that go and outsource it or hire someone to do it. Imagine how much bigger, right, or more profitable your business could be if you freed up, 4 to 5 hours a week to be able to work on business development instead of those administrative tasks, as an example. And then lastly is delivery mastery. This is making sure that you are consistently meeting and beating your customer or your client expectations. A lot of feedback that I get here is, well, of course I am, or right, I know that I am because my customers or clients would tell me if I'm not, and I never hear anything negative. And so then I have to level set and say, well, the reality is that they're not likely going to tell you that they're shopping around. They're just going to tell you when they've decided to leave. And if they've had a couple of bad experiences, they're probably just telling their family or friends, or they're posting it on social media. So the idea here is to set us up a system so that you're consistently getting that feedback so that you can be proactive and course correct. Because the last thing you want to do is not know that you're providing a bad service and start growing your company and start providing bad service to even more people. So then step 2 is niche. So back to our definition, it's now a commercial profitable enterprise. And it's profitable because we're not competing on price. As I said earlier, the moment that we compete on price, we're actually setting ourselves up to go bankrupt, right? Because someone's always going to be willing to undercut us. So then it becomes this death spiral to the bottom of who can afford to cut the price the most, right? Or who can afford to keep discounting And eventually the biggest person is going to be the one, or the one with the biggest pockets is going to be the one that's still around. So our focus then is to make sure that we're not competing on price. And the pushback that I generally get here is, hey, but Tim, we have to be the best price because that's what our customers want. So we've done a number of surveys over the years to really understand if that's true. And the results of the survey is that it's not. Price is actually the third thing that people buy on, right, in terms of what's most important. That's below below service. The level of service and liking the salesperson comes much higher on the list than price. I said third, but what I meant was it's 10%. So it's even less than third. It's only 10% of the reason that people buy, with service and sales, the salesperson coming much higher on the list. And so one of the things that I generally ask folks when we first start working together is, when's the last time you took a price increase? And usually it's been a long time, and so we push one through right away. And the reality is that there's this nervousness of, oh, I'm going to lose my customers, but really the only customers that you tend to lose are the ones that you don't really want anyway, because the only reason they're buying from you is because of the price, and they're probably the most pain in the butt customers. So when you price increase them, you either just make more money on them, or you lose them and free up capacity to bring on more profitable customers. So instead of competing on price, we need to create a niche. So the first area is having a unique selling proposition. What is it about your organization that differentiates you from your competitors? What can you stand on to say that this is why folks should buy from me versus my competition, because I'm unique and different? The other thing to think about is offering a guarantee. Right? Is there something that you can provide that overcomes an obstacle in the buying process, that you can just remove the obstacle by guaranteeing it? So for example, at Action Coach, one of the biggest concerns about hiring a coach is, well, how do I know if it's going to work, right? It's an investment, and how do I know that I'm going to make that money back? So we just eliminate that concern by guaranteeing results. So in a one-on-one coaching relationship with me, I guarantee that the business will grow enough to pay for my fees, or I keep working for free until it does. And so in your business, you want to think through, again, what are the biggest challenges or hurdles for people agreeing to buy from you, and just implement a guarantee to overcome that. If you can't think of that type of guarantee, then just look at something that's mandated in your industry that you have to provide by law, and just guarantee that, because it's going to allow you to differentiate yourself if you're the only one that's offering that guarantee. Okay, so the next thing within niche that we look at is marketing and sales, and we use the Action Coach tool called the 5 Ways to Massive Profits. Let me walk you through this a little bit. So most business owners know how many customers they have, they know what their revenue is, and they know how much profit they make. Which one of these do you think is most important?
Their customers.
So it's actually a trick question.
All of them.
Yeah. Actually, all of them are the least important.
Okay.
Because they're just results, right? Meaning that if I was to say to you tomorrow, go get another customer, or go make more revenue, or go make more profit, you can't, because those 3 things are results of doing other activities. So this is where it gets really exciting, because we have this formula, very simple formula, that shows what the other things are. It's the five things. So your number of leads times your conversion rate equals the number of customers or the number of clients. You times that by the number of transactions. You times that by your average dollar sale, and that equals your revenue. And then you times that by your profit, equal your profit. So if I was to say, go out and get more customers, right? What you have to do to get more customers is you have to increase the number of leads, and you have to improve your conversion rate. So I'm going to show an example with some numbers here of just a generic client to give a little more context to this. So for example, 4,000 leads. The conversion rate in this example is 25%. So of all the people who come and say, I'm interested in buying from you, 25% of them agreed to actually make the purchase. So in this example, there's 1,000 customers. Then let's say those 1,000 customers on average buy from you 2 times a year. So the average number of transactions is 2. Now, some customers will only buy once. Some customers will buy 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, but on average, they're buying 2. Does that make sense? So then average dollar sale is 100. So same thing. Each time they purchase from you, on average, they spend $100, but some may have only spent $10. Some may spend $1,000, but again, on average, they spend $100 on each transaction. So 1,000 customers times 2 transactions a year times $100 per transaction means that the revenue is $200,000. Then profit margins in this example is 25%. So then the ultimate profit is $50,000. Does that formula all make sense?
I totally understand it. I just don't know where to begin with the first number, the number of leads. Do I, because I'm working, I'm soliciting business coaches, consultants, and do I count the number of people that downloaded my lead magnet for the month as a number of leads? Because I'm not counting them as a lead until there's, okay.
Good question.
Because that 4,000 number is really high.
Yes. So above leads would be your marketing activities. So in this example, what the 4,000 is these people have taken enough steps to say, yeah, I'm really interested. And so in my world, it would be, somebody asks for a proposal, right? They come to my complimentary coaching session with the intent of, I'm serious enough about coaching that I really want to specifically understand what that looks like for me and my business, right? This seminar would be my marketing activities.
Okay, but it's not till you get them to the proposal point.
Correct. Yeah. So in this example, let's just for argument's sake say that my conversion rate to leads is 10%. So that would say I need 40,000, touch points a year, right? Okay. Because 10% of those are actually going to become leads.
Okay.
And so when we start working together, not only do we work with this formula, but we also work with we develop the marketing strategy, right? And the idea is we have 10 different marketing strategies in play at all times that make up, each strategy would account for about 10% of our leads. And we test and measure those things over time to determine, hey, is this marketing program working or not? Right? Is it generating leads or not? And are those leads converting to customers? And what's my return on that marketing investment? Right? So then over time, we can start to say, hey, this one's not working. These 2 or 3 are. So I'm going to scrap that one. I'm going to continue to work on building out these ones. Okay. So we're going to come back to this in a couple more slides. I'm going to go through the rest of the 6 steps, and then we'll show what the impact will be on these financials. So step 3 is leverage. As I said earlier, back to my definition, we now have a commercial profitable enterprise that works. And the reason that it works is because leverage is all about systems. And systems are defined as saving yourself time, energy, and money. So generally speaking, about 80% of what we do in our day-to-day in the business is routine work. So the idea is systematize the routine so that we free ourselves up to humanize, the non-routine. Right? Do a really great job at the human element of our business, which is about 20% of our business, and have systems, processes, procedures, and disciplines make the other 80% run more efficiently and effectively. So there's 9 areas that we focus on systematizing in the business. So the first is a vision statement, right? Having a very clear understanding of what the purpose of your organization is, what's the greater good that your company is providing in the marketplace. Underneath that is the mission. statement, right? The how do you provide that vision? Then identifying your culture. What are your values and your beliefs of your organization? Then identifying your SMART goals, specific, measurable, action-oriented, attainable, results-oriented with a time frame. Then having an organization chart. So what does your company look like when it's done from an org chart standpoint? What are all the roles that you're going to need in your company so that as you start to grow, you already know that, hey, when I get to this revenue level, the next person that I need in the company is this spot. And step 6 is having a positional contract. So you're having the job description defined. So again, when you need it, you're not scrambling to figure it out. You've done it proactively, and you can quickly put that job posting out into the marketplace because you've done the work ahead of time. Having key performance indicators for everybody within the organization so that they know how they're going to be measured, and you've done the exercise of knowing that the things that you're measuring them on tie back to your SMART goals. Having how-to systems for everything that's done in the company. Right? So instead of having everybody just winging it and doing it on their own way, you write it out, right? You write out processes and procedures, or you video how to do something so that when folks are trained the first time and they forget, because they will forget, right? There's something for them to go back to and learn from. One of the biggest mistakes that business owners make is, well, I trained them and they couldn't do it. And so I asked them, well, how many years has it taken you to perfect that thing that you trained them on? Oh, whatever, 20, 15, 5. And so you expected them to do it as well as you can after an hour of training. And then usually the business owner laughs, right? Because they get it, that they didn't realize it at the time, but when I jokingly put it in their face, they're like, yeah, you're right, I get it. So making sure that we've got, training and onboarding and videos and how-to manuals and whatever it is to make sure that those folks have something to rely on. And then an overall management system in place of how's the organization run, right? What is the day-to-day like? What types of meetings are we going to have? How are we sharing out information? Right? Are we meeting weekly or bi-weekly? And in those meetings, you're giving them feedback on things that you're doing well. You're giving them input on constructive criticism on or feedback on things that they're not doing well. You're reviewing those key performance indicators with them. You're letting them know overall if they're meeting or beating expectations, or if they're not, and what are the things that they need to do to be able to pull up their socks and perform better. And then step 4 is team. So back to our definition, we have a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you. And it works without you now because we've got a team in place. So my job then as your coach is to help you build your team so that ultimately you as the owner pull out of the day-to-day, right? And your job becomes a couple things. First is you're focusing on the strategic direction of the organization. And number 2, you are training and developing and supporting your team. Because if you take care of the team will then take care of the customers because they've been trained, they've been equipped, they've been encouraged, they've been motivated, and they know what they're doing and they can do it independent of you. So if the team takes care of the customers will then take care of the business. Customers take care of the business by repeat business as well as referrals. And then if the business is taken care of, it'll take care of you, the owner, through the profits that the business generates. Then, the other thing here is the 2 things that we focus on. First, most businesses focus on this backwards. So most businesses will hire and recruit based on who has the right skills and experiences for the role. And generally what that means is we end up hiring people that are only working for a paycheck. So we turn that upside down based on what we just covered in the leverage area with the vision and the culture, is we hire based on, are people aligned to the vision of our organization, the greater good, the purpose that we are providing in the marketplace, And are they excited about that? Do they want to be part of that? And are they aligned to our culture, to our values and our beliefs? If they are aligned to both of those and we feel that there's a fit, then we look at, do they have the right skills and experiences? Because skills and experiences can be taught. Alignment to our vision and our culture can't. And if we get people who are aligned to our vision and our culture, we now have people who are working for us because they believe in and they want to work for us, not just because of a paycheck. So we've got a recruiting process called deselection that we use that just flips the interviewing process upside down and makes it way more efficient and effective for the owner to leverage your time and make your time more, not waste as much time on all those pre-screening interviews and one-on-one interviews. Right? And we put some hurdles in place to make the candidate prove that they really want to work for your company. Then we go up, the fifth step is synergy. This is when things start really clicking in your business, right? 1 + 1 = more than 2. Right? You've got a well-oiled machine that is running without you. Step 6 then is ultimately the results that you're looking for. So most folks go into business for 3 things: freedom, flexibility, and wealth. So it's at this synergy level where you start to get that freedom and flexibility because the business is running without you. So you can start to think about, well, what do I want to do next? Right? Maybe I want to open another location. Maybe I want to start another business. You're able to do that because you have the time to do it, but you also have the passive income from this business that's working without you to be able to invest in another one. Maybe you want to invest in real estate or the stock market, right? You've got that freedom and flexibility to be able to do that. And then to your point earlier, Julie, is you may want to sell it, right? And so it's at this point too where the business is much more sellable. The multiple that you're able to command for your business is much higher because the business runs without you. It runs more like a corporation, a larger corporation than a small business, and so it commands a much higher a resale value. And selling could be selling to an investor. It could be also selling to the next generation of the family. And you still want to be able to pass it to the next generation as a well-oiled machine. So then let's come back to our little business example that I shared earlier. Here were the numbers that I talked through. So then when we start working with businesses, we have them create this 5 ways within their business, and then we start measuring it over time. And what we see is just by tracking this over a 12-month period, businesses on average see a 10% increase in each area. And the reason for that is just simply because they're paying attention to it, right? So back to the reticular activating system is things that you focus on and you don't like the number, that you just generally, by osmosis, it starts to get better because you're disappointed with the number. On top of that, we've got over 350 strategies across these 5 different areas that when you become a client, we give that to you and say, okay, now your homework this week is to go through these and scratch off the things that you don't think apply to your industry, scratch off ones that you've done in the past and you don't believe worked, circle ones that you are currently doing, and then highlight a few that you aren't doing but you think would work in your business, in your industry, and you'd like to implement over the coming months. So then we pick 1 or 2 in each of those 5 areas. So as an example, increase in the number of leads, right? One easy way to do that is to talk to your current happy customers or clients and ask them for referrals. And those referrals obviously are folks who have been pre-screened by your happy customers, and that will help increase your leads. Conversion rate, ask those same people for a testimonial or a review, and use those testimonials with new prospects or new leads to say, hey, here are some of my other customers or clients who are very happy with my service, and that can help improve your conversion rate. Number of transactions. One easy way to improve the number of transactions is just to remind people that they haven't bought from you in a while, right? Mm-hmm. So a hair salon is a great example of, we all forget how long it's been since the last time we went. And so if you put a methodology in place of just booking the next appointment before they leave, you increase the number of transactions because now it's locked on their calendar. Improving average dollar sale. McDonald's does this extremely well. So what is it that the cashier says to you after you place your order?
Would you like fries with that?
Absolutely. Would you like fries with that? Yeah. So that very simple upsell. So think about what can be your version of would you like fries with that? What is something that you can ask every single customer or client if they'd like to purchase that along with whatever it was that they were originally going to purchase from you? Some percentage of everyone is going to say yes. So by not doing it, you're just simply leaving money on the table. And then profit margins, we talked this earlier. The easiest way to improve this is a price increase. Most people haven't taken price increase on a regular basis, and the pricing that they may have taken, generally speaking, is below the cost of inflation. And so it's an easy exercise to just go ahead and implement a price increase right away.
So I've been about every 2 years, and it's been kind of that 4 to 5%. Is that that's really low?
Well, if you think in general, inflation is 2 to 3%. So if you're doing 5 every 2 years, you're probably close. But what I would recommend is you actually look at your true costs, right?
Mm.
So have your costs increased more or less than the general inflation level, and base your price increase on your true costs, right?
Okay.
Including your own salary, right? You should be giving yourself a salary improvement every year, along with the utilities and rent and whatever piece of that I think you had told me you work from home. So whatever you're charging your business as part of your home operating expenses, right, that should be factored into what your price increases are.
Okay.
Okay, so then let's look at if we were to implement those 2 or 3 tactics across each of those 5 ways over the next 12 months, along with just putting this tracking mechanism in place. Let's see what just a 10% increase would be in each of those 5 areas. So number of leads goes from 4,000 up 10% to 4,400. Conversion rate goes from 25% to 27.5. So notice it's not a 10-point increase, it's just a 10%. So 10% of 25 is 2.5. So then 4,400 times 27.5 increases our customers to 1,210. Number of transactions goes from 2 to 2.2. Average dollar sale goes from 100 to 110. So then 1,210 times 2.2 times 110 increases our revenue to 292,820. Profit margin goes from 25 to 27.5. So then our profit goes from 50,000 up to 80,525. So here's the really cool part about the fact that this formula is a multiplication formula, not an addition formula. So having a 21% increase at the customer level, even though we only increased by 10% the leads and 10% conversion, as you get to the bottom, the profit has gone up by a significant 61%. So just to show hands, would you like 61% increase in profit over the next 12 months?
So can you send us this slide here? And I know my accountant gives me a profit and loss and stuff like that. I've never tracked this per se.
Sure. Yeah. The reality is, so I'm going to use a rough guess based on my interactions. 95% of the over 400 business owners that I've met with so far since opening my business don't do this. And it's magic. I mean, we call it the chassis of running a business, right? Is once you fit, this should be a big aha moment of, oh, wow, it now just becomes a math exercise, right? And if I put more stuff at the top of the funnel, right, and make some improvements throughout those 5 ways, it's a significant impact on the business.
Well, and now that I mean, this seems like it's such a duh thing, you're like, oh, I'll just ask past clients for referrals. Like these are very simple things. I mean, I could even make some more phone calls or emails.
Absolutely.
I don't mind doing that, but now that I see this on paper.
Yep. So back to what I was saying earlier about the 10 by 10 marketing. So to get to 4,000 leads, right? That's where the marketing activity comes in. And you mentioned one of them. Okay. So how many phone calls do I need to make? Well, you don't know how many phone calls you need to make until you know what your conversion rate is on phone calls. So the first thing we put in place is a tracking mechanism, right? Of let's test and measure, right? How many calls do I need to make to get an appointment? Or how many calls do I need to make to get somebody to come to a seminar? Or right, et cetera, whatever your business model is. And then you track it and you're like, okay, I need to make, I'm making this up, 20 to get one. All right, good. So now I just fill up my calendar with blocks of making 20 calls, right?
Got it.
To get however many leads I need that week or want that week, right? And 4,000 in this example is throughout the year. So you break that down by week. And now you've got very clear KPIs for yourself or your team to say your goals this week are to make 50 phone calls, 100 phone calls, or send, 100 pieces of direct mail, or go to 2 networking events and get 10 business, whatever it is. You come up with those and then you start testing and measuring them to figure out which ones work and which ones don't.
Okay.
So let's take a look at what this would look like if we were to do it over a 5-year period. So same idea here, right? If we were to do that same strategy in year 2, right, the profit goes up 159%, okay? If we were to implement those same incremental changes and improvements across those 5 areas over 3 years, profit is up 317%, 4 years, 571%, and then 5 years, 983%.
So this is increasing the number of leads by 10% each year.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Increasing the leads by 10%, increasing conversion rate by 10%, right? And go back to what I was saying earlier is, we've got 350 strategies, right, across those 5 areas that you continue to optimize the ones that we put in year 1, but we may add another one in year 2. And so now you're getting the benefit of the ones that we put in year 1, and you're adding a new one in year 2, right? And with that testing and measuring that I was saying earlier, is everything is getting more efficient and effective each year because you're getting smarter with the data that you have, that those things are just working for you better than they did in the first year because you didn't have a whole lot of information, right? The first year is a lot of trial and error and guessing.
Right.
But by the time you get to year 3 and 4, it's like, oh, I already know these things work. So now I know if I spend $100, I get $1,000 back. Mm-hmm. So every time I have $100, I'm just going to spend it. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So would you guys like 1,000% improvement in profit in 5 years?
I'm shooting myself.
Yeah. And so one of the questions I get, a lot, and I said it earlier, right, in terms of, hey, Tim, I'm worried about, the coaching investment and not getting a return. So here's where we show that there's a return, right? So in that first year, there's $30,000 in profit improvement that the owner wasn't expecting, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason that they got that was because of the programs that we put in place. So they've got $30,000 to invest back into actually realizing those mm-hmm. results. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm going to end with a couple of quotes, and then we can open it up if there's any more specifics that you wanted to dig into. So the first one here is Richard Branson. He says that if you can learn to run one business successfully, there's no reason why you can't run any number of businesses at the same time, because the principles are the same. So the things that I just talked you through, the 6 steps to building a better business and the 5 ways to massive profits, those are 2 systems and methodologies and principles that you can cut and paste, right? Once you've learned it on the first business, it's very easy to apply it to the second business because now you just get it, right? You know how it works, and you can start to replicate that across multiple businesses. and your second and third and fourth and fifth, or however many businesses you end up buying, become much easier because you just know how to do it. Jim Rohn says, never wish your life were easier, wish that you were better. He says to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Okay? We have a formula for success that is BE times do equals have. And this isn't on the screen, so I'm just talking out loud over top of Jim's quote here. So B times do equals have, the formula for success. So we all want certain things out of life, right? There are things that we want to have in life. And that's probably why we've gone into business for ourselves, because we assumed that our owning a business would be a better way to provide for the things that we want to have in life than working for someone else. And those three things generally at a very high level, I mentioned earlier, are freedom, flexibility, and wealth. And so in order to have those things, there are requirements within our business of stuff that we're going to have to do. We have to do certain things in our business for the business to be able to provide for the things that we want to have in life. Most people focus on do, right? I'll just work harder. I'll just work longer. Right? I'll just put in everything to make the business successful. In our formula, we add the B, and we say that B is actually where you should be spending 80% of your time, not on the do. And the B is, I need to become the type of business owner that's able to do the things that are required for my business to be successful, so that the business can provide for the things that I want to have in life. And so instead of just working harder, we have to learn how to work smarter. And it's all the things that I just talked through. All right, then Brad Sugars, our founder, says where you'll be in 5 years will depend on the books you read, the people you associate with, and the actions you take. So think about, where are you investing your time to become, for your B to be stronger, right? What are you doing to become the type of business owner that's needed to have a successful business? Right? Who are you associating with? What books are you reading? What seminars are you attending? What webinars are you going to? What mastermind groups are you being, like, who are you surrounding yourself with to help elevate your game? And then most importantly is all that learning that you acquire, what are you doing with it? What actions are you taking? And then finally, Tiger Woods says, no matter how tough you think you are, you can't do this on your own. And he was talking about the value of his coach and his support team. So too many business owners feel like, I'll just suck it up and work harder and longer and just figure this out on my own. And they end up not making the best choices and the best decisions, because not for any fault of their own, it's just that they don't know, right? Most people, they don't know what they don't know. And by investing in outside resources, they can become more efficient and effective and become experts at running their business and realize some of the numbers that we just talked through. So let's go back to your goals that you stated at the beginning. Does everyone feel like they've learned at least one thing this evening?
Much more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about, much more. So how about 3 things? At least 3 things?
Yeah.
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 So I mentioned this a few times, but because we're all about action, I want you to write down the number 1 learning that you got out of this evening. And then more importantly, what's the one action that you're going to take to apply that learning moving forward?
Well, my big aha moment was the massive profits. And I'm going to make a spreadsheet and then do tracking And so I could see the numbers. And I absolutely agree. Just if you track, whatever you track increased. I tracked how many vegetables I was eating a day, and I increased it, I doubled the amount within a month.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so make sure you write it down. You don't have to, it's not necessarily important to share it to me, but make sure that you are writing it down and you hold yourself accountable. One of the biggest challenges with conferences and seminars is people walk out all excited and then they do absolutely nothing about what they learned, or they try to implement what they learned and it doesn't work the first few times because it's brand new. And then they get frustrated and end up letting it go. So to that point, there's two different directions that you can take at this time, right? The first is, hey, Tim, thanks. This has been great information. I love what I've learned. I've taken a ton of notes, and I'm gonna give it a go on my own, and maybe I'll buy a couple of Brad's books. But I think I got this, and thank you. This has been wonderful. Or for those of you who want to get massive results and might be asking, how do you get more details about what you learned today? You might be saying, hey, what are my options? This is what we do. So as a business coach, I work with you to implement the 6 steps and the 5 ways that we just talked through in your business. I become your uncomfortable friend who pushes you when you need a kick in the butt, right? Who confronts you when you're in blame, excuses, and denial, and who reminds you of your end game, right? When things get tough and you want to quit. Because yes, business is hard, and there are absolutely going to be times when you're going to want to quit, right? But just like a sports coach who continually pushes folks to excel, you would have hired me to do the same with you so that you can achieve the business success you want and be able to realize the personal dreams that you have. So as your coach, I don't let you give up on yourself. I push you through those challenges and frustrations and make sure that you get through to the other side. So if you choose the second option, if you want massive results and you're ready to do whatever it takes to get there, I've got a special offer for you. As a thank you for being part of this webinar, you have the opportunity to participate in a complimentary coaching session with me, valued at $1,500. So I do a limited number of these sessions a month. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, you're going to want to get on this right away. The way that it works is it starts with a brief questionnaire, and then we'll meet for 2 hours to do a deep dive into your business to show how the 6 steps and the 5 ways work specifically in your business. And then we also determine if coaching's right for you. So if we both agree that it makes sense, I'll then ask you to make a decision about which coaching program you want to move forward with. Look, at the end of the day, my passion is growing businesses and coaching business leaders. So I guarantee that in that complimentary coaching session, you're going to walk away with at least one strategy that you can implement in your business immediately, even if you decide that coaching's not for you. So it's a significant value for you in terms of taking your business to the next level. And if you want to take advantage of that, you can send me a note afterwards, send me an email, just let me know that yes, you want to sign up for the complimentary coaching session, and then we'll go through next steps and get that booked on calendars. Okay. So the other question that I often get is, well, what are the different coaching programs? So my philosophy is that every business needs a coach. And so I don't want cost to be a barrier. So I've got a number of different programs to fit into everybody's budget. And the way that we figure that out is we actually use your financials, and we look at, what's the business going to improve over the next 12 months. And we use that improvement to determine what level of coaching makes most sense for you and your business. But I've got weekly coaching programs, one-on-one, as well as group. I've got monthly mastermind programs. And then I do a number of things like this for free, right? So for folks who aren't ready for an investment level, seminars like this, if you're not on my email database, you'll want to sign up for that. I send out weekly tips. I'm also posting information on social media all the time, and all of those things can help folks get started so that they can get to the place of being able to then move into one of the programs. then the idea over time is, right, is that as the business grows, then you upgrade into one of the higher level programs, because that just means that you're getting results faster. So as the P&L, as it makes sense in the P&L, right, the goal is to get to a one-on-one so that the business acceleration is the highest. A couple of upcoming events that I have. First, on Fridays, I do a Survive and Thrive Mastermind. This is a combination of education and group sharing and best practices and community building. And so we generally have a panel of experts that speak on a specific topic. This week is the PPP loan. And for folks who have gotten it, right, what do you do with that now, right? How do you make sure that you're following the rules and that it becomes forgivable as opposed to a loan? And then on Wednesdays, so tomorrow I'm doing this presentation again, but then ongoing week to week, I'm going to dig into one of the areas that I just talked through, right, and spend the 45 minutes to an hour doing a deeper dive on one of the topics. So if you're interested in either of those, let me know. If you haven't gotten an email from me with the registration information, let me know, and we can get you signed up. And then I don't know the date yet, but I'm going to be doing a 90-day reopen planning session, right? So for folks to think about, okay, the economy is going to be opening back up soon. What do I need to do to make sure that I'm ahead of the curve and coming out strong and preparing to thrive? So that's all that I had to prepare. Any questions that you guys have?
No.
This was truly, truly excellent, Tim. I sit on, I don't know, multiple webinars a month, and I'm always in a professional development, and I have to say it's exceeded my expectations.
Well, thank you very much.
So the farthest I've gotten through 1, 2, and 3, but there's a little hole in mastery, and there's somewhat of a hole in my niche. And then, some holes in leverage. Are those truly the stair steps that you work in? Because I'm thinking the vision mission statement that's kind of the first thing, but I understand where you're saying you have to be an expert in something before you can go into business.
So remember when I talked mastery, the destination was the first thing at mastery. So you have to start with, what is the vision of your company at more of a rudimentary level, right? Okay. You just need to know, because you're probably just, when you're starting out, you're a solopreneur. So not everyone in the organization needs to know, but you need to begin with the end in mind. So we tackle it first at destination mastery. And then when we get to leverage, we dig into it a lot further and really hone it out and make sure that it's, very
right. So in mastery, you don't have to have all those answers. You just have to make it through the startup phase, and then you could start. Okay.
Absolutely.
Got it.
So I appreciate the feedback. Like I was saying earlier about testimonials and referrals. So would you be willing to give me a Google review based on this experience?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll send out that link to you guys. Any other questions?
No. I'm good.
No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you. This was truly, truly wonderful. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.